If you forget the reality that Shakespeare is universal and was written for everybody with common themes that really ought to be part of everyone's life, that's what makes you a good actor, connecting with that audience, not ignoring it, not writing for 14 other people. And that's the problem in Washington. We have three basic groups, none of whom like each other very much socially, and none of whom really have much to do with each other in an echo chamber writing for each other. And that has not served the country well. We have liberal institutionalists who read Foreign Affairs magazine and are members of the Council on Foreign Relations, who are the stalwarts of the Democratic Party. We have neoconservatives who write and read the Weekly Standard, who, of course, were standard bearers for ex-President Bush. And we have realists, my bunch, over at the Nixon Center, editing National Interest, going to meetings where the calendars still read 1975 on the wall, acting as though the 12 of us talking to each other was accomplishing something other than being a cottage industry. Again, the days are gone when Sam Rayburn went on Friday, have a whiskey with the members of the Republican leadership, and despite disagreeing fundamentally about many things, would realize the common humanity that everyone in Congress had in working with each other. Instead, these groups pay no heed to each other, despise each other, make fun of each other. In other words, it's a lot like high school, okay, and about as mature in some ways. But the reality is, despite these disagreements, many of these groups, particularly the two major schools of thought in both the Democratic and Republican parties, actually agree fundamentally about the nature of the world. Tell a parable, use common standards that everyone understands, and tell a story about where the country is, critique what's going on using that common culture, and move forward from there. And so that's what we'd like to do without any further ado. Tell the story of where America is through one of the greatest movies ever made in American cinema, Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather. However, it begins as the movie goes on. You see that this wonderful system, finely calibrated, is coming to an end. Not because the Don is stupid, not because the Don has even made fundamental mistakes, though certainly mistakes have been made. Other powers are rising. This has happened throughout history, and it's happening again. The other five families, the Tatalias and the Barzinis, the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, are rising relative to the Don. I've been to so many conferences where the last session is on the rise of these great powers. It's usually a Saturday morning after a late Friday night. We all kind of wander in a little foggy-headed, have a cup of coffee, nod sagely at each other about the importance of this, and nobody stops to think, what does this mean for the future of the world that we live in?
And there's this shock to the system that the Don is in fact vulnerable. And I think it's very similar to the psychological impact of the September 11th attacks in the United States. The Corleone family, but also the other rising powers, the Tatalias and the Barzinis, all look at this and they say, how is it possible that this hegemon, this benign hegemon, this Marlon Brando character, who tediously built up all of the building blocks for this institutionalized system, this Pax Corleone, this Pax Americana for the last several decades, how could this guy who's got all the military and he's got all the judges and all the senators and policemen, how is it possible that he gets shot by someone that no one in the movie has ever heard of? How is it possible? And in the course of the scenes that follow, the three sons get together to try to understand how to cope with this new world that the Corleones find themselves in. And I think one of the things that makes the Godfather saga work so well as a metaphor for current-day geopolitics, as John alluded to, is just how closely the strategic worldviews of the three sons, Sonny, Tom, and Michael, how closely their strategic worldviews correspond to the prevailing schools of thought in American foreign policy. You've got Sonny. We love the James Caan character. This sort of brawny, red-headed guy who's always running around looking for ways to use the military muscle. You've got Tom Hagen, the consigliere, the family lawyer and diplomat, who thinks that rules can trump power. He wants to fall back on the family's rather substantial diplomatic and institutional support systems. And then you've got Michael, the youngest son, who wants to consolidate the family's power base and rally its allies and live to fight another day. And as John said, Sonny is the neoconservative, Tom is the liberal institutionalist, and Michael is the realist.